You're walking in the woods. There's no one around and your phone is dead. Out of the corner of your eye, you spot him.
Hello there, my name is Graham and today we're going to be taking a wee look at The Dare, an iconic Halloween scenario by Sentinel Hill Press. Written by Kevin Ross, this scenario starts life as a convention game in the late 80s and was kickstarted a few years back and revised by Brett Kramer. We definitely had fun with this one, but it does have a couple of hiccups that keepers will have to pay attention to for it to run smoothly. Modelling itself on videos, The Dare offers a PG and an R rating for its content, which is a little bit of extra fun if you wish to tone down the scenario and play with actual kids as well. This is very much appreciated and hats off to this respect. This breakdown, however, will only cover the R-rated version. This scenario does not shy away from its 80 horror references to the point where there's even a hefty and delicious section tucked away inside detailing inspirational films for the keepers to watch before running the slasher vibe game. With the story itself revolving around a lot of beloved tropes, we see the players take on the role of a group of kids who are dared by a friend or bully called Roger to stay the night at an abandoned haunted house. Little do they know that the old Barkner place where they're being lured to by Roger is the lair of an evil witch in which Roger is now in service to. There they will find lots of things that go bump in the night. For this scenario, Sentinel Hill has created new sheets and rules for the investigators, being kids around the age of 11 and 12. To reflect this, the skills on the sheets are reduced and combined, making for some more basic childlike options like gym class and sneaky stuff, and my personal favourite, playing with fire. These really do sell the idea to the players that they are actually in a different age group rather than being stereotypical investigators, and really fits that kids on bike theme very well, aping Stranger Things and so forth. Some could find playing children this age a little uncomfortable being outside of their comfort zone, but this can work very well if the players are in the right mindset. And we recently did a actual play over at Ain't Slayed Nobody with Becca Scott, Ross Bryant and Scott Dorwood. If you wish to see a excellent rendition of how this scenario will turn out. So, with the preamble out the way, let's get stuck in and address one of the main things I have a problem with straight off the bat about this scenario, which is, no surprise, the hook. Most scenarios tend to fall down here because hooks are damn hard, and this scenario is no different. Heading to the house on a mere dare, the children are meant to be motivated to stay in this haunted house and even explore its depths with this little reason, and it is seriously dangerous stuff they're going to be encountering, and that is not going to cut it to drive them forward. On top of this, the scenario tries to hotfix this problem of the kids running away with a lock-in spell which seals the house and removes player agencies to leave the very unsatisfied and almost resenting of this fact, unable to break windows and doors are suddenly sealed shut. It is a little bit demoralizing indeed. So instead, we can replace this and build a new hook for the players and the children to push past this initial uncanny and disturbing sense of horror that they're going to be discovering as soon as they get into the actual building itself. To do this, I introduced secrets. Roger having broken into their clubhouse to steal a pledge box full of the kids' secrets that they have pledged to their club to join its ranks. Having hid these around the haunted house and leaving a note for them in a trashed clubhouse, the children are needing to find these things, terrified of the prospects of them being read out at school the next day should they let Roger keep them. With that motivation of terror of their own deep dark secrets being revealed to the world, they are more than willing to put up with a few horrors and push through into the house and actually explore it as well in a more natural fashion, with Roger punishing them and taunting them from behind because they have told the teacher on him about his bullying habits and stealing lunch money. And so off the group go on one blustery Halloween night, using their bikes to make their way to this haunted house, sneaking off after trick-or-treating, still wearing their costumes. Roger is supposed to be with them as a friend or waiting at the house as the scenario opens, setting him up as just another kid, potentially showing him as a playable character to the players as a misdirect, or that is how the scenario wishes him to be approached. I would suggest playing him as more of a straight bully and keeping the lines clear that he is here as an antagonist. Personally, I have Roger meets the players as he is carving his name into the porch, waiting for them as the brooding clouds start to break and a storm starts to bluster and pelt the pavement with large, fat raindrops. The kids arriving at the abandoned house and leaving their bikes on the sidewalk as they enter the squeaking, rusting gate and push into a overgrown yard. This does three things. It builds the storm, which will become a key player later on when the children are trying to escape. It shows Roger with a knife playing a much more visible danger, much like the bully in It, which he's aped after. And lastly, gives the players that hope of their bikes being left on the sidewalk as a safety blanket. They know they're there, that is their escape, and that will always drive them forward to try. Roger himself has already been to the house in this standard setup and is now in the clutches of the evil witch Evelyn, who lives under the house in tunnels, sitting there to devour children that happen to come too close. He is no more than a servitor of skin filled with bugs doing her bidding. I've found that this causes some problems because if anyone should attack Roger early on or even outside the property, it is likely to reveal who he is and have his skin fold in and the bugs start to pour out as they hit and punch him. It is a possibility due to the bravado and one-upmanship that's happening here to goad the players into the house, and it will expose them far too early. I find it is better to have Roger being motivated by himself and his bullying to pull off this dare and hide the notes of the secrets around the house himself. With the activity of the children coming in now, waking Evelyn up to their actual presence and taking them all at once, with Roger disappearing at some point during the adventure to then become the Servitor of Skin. And this would telegraph more of the dread and build and what can happen to the children during the scenario. Approaching the house, they'll have to go through the yard, which is an overgrown mess of long grass, overgrown trees, and untended bushes. The scenario wants you to allow the kids to wander through this yard and to find a few things, and it doesn't hurt to let them do so, and they can find some useful tools which will be beneficial to them. But I find it is a bit of a waste of time if you are wanting this to be a one night scenario, and it is best to shuffle them off into the house with little regard. I did, however, change the grounds so the house was further back against the trees, and there was more of a gauntlet of messy garden, the pond up front, and then the cistern in the trees and overgrown bushes and all the grass that they have to run through if they should run out during this scenario into this massive storm. It creates this obstacle course to get to them coveted bikes sitting gleaming on the pavement, that hope that they're trying to go for should they try and run. Finally, entering the house, the kids are confronted with a dilapidated hallway with overgrown ferns pushing up through the floorboards and rats scurrying out from cover and trying to find darkness as they scan the place with their flashlights. There are 4 rooms initially downstairs and a pantry to explore as well, each having a small surprise to raise the stakes and tell the story of the last owners of this house and Evelyn the Witch as well. This scenario gives the keepers lengthy paragraphs on smell, lighting, and sounds, which just really sets the mood and tone you're going for and ekes out that creepiness as they creep inside. The dining room is right next to the door, and in here you'll discover some foreshadowing of the rain-soaked floor and sagging ceiling from above that the PCs can fall through. On top of this, there's smashed mirrors all over the mouldy furniture, and from these shards you can catch fleeting glances of the witch over their shoulder, distracting them when they're doing other things like searching or in precarious situations where they could slip and be distracted and fall, cut themselves on the glass, and other such things as that. These glimpses should be downplayed and only shown to one person at a time, so they have to build up this picture of paranoia and learn from each other that what they are seeing is in fact real. Across from the dining room is the parlour, which has many paintings hung from the walls and a knapsack from a homeless man that can offer another few useful items. The paintings on the wall can start to reveal the story of the house and Evelyn as she's seen in the 1900s, surrounded by children, all orphaned and now in her care. She sits there matronly with a fussy cat on her lap, and the other paintings can tell more of her life story with the orphanage and other mundane aspects of what she did with her life. This is an addition to what you're meant to find in the attic, which will clue in who Evelyn is, and will just reinforce that if they don't find these handouts, so they know a little bit more of what they're going to be dealing with. In the fireplace in this room, there is a dead raccoon in the flue, and I changed this to have the raccoon inside the pledge box with a note from Roger, him scattering the secrets around themselves individually and leaving this little surprise in the pledge box for them. Bury it in the ashes and have them delightfully open it, thinking they have found their prize. The best scare downstairs comes from the family room, as down below the parlour, and offers up more mouldy furniture and scurrying rats as they explore. In amongst more modern photos of the last family, the Briggses, they will find the cat Rassus sitting on a shelf like a mangy stuffed animal, along with ornaments of other animals and carvings, looking down at them all from the shelf. It will sit still as it can, watching them explore, but as soon as they try to interfere with the cat, it will hiss and claw at them and then run off into the shadows. Whoever pissed the cat off is who I would pick on specifically with this cat, casting spells and actually stalking him through the house in the shadows, actually going after and being quite malicious about this one child. I feel the cat should be the main villain for the first 1 or 2 acts of the scenario, and this place is jam-packed with other creatures, which is just hard to give everything the same amount of screen time. So I would pick and choose which of the villains you want to highlight and just remove the others. I dropped the rat and bat things as they're a little silly. There is already rats and bats in this place, and these just have faces and are just a little bit of a comic relief. They can be guides or friends to the children as well, which is again a little goofy, a little too Disney for me, and perhaps that is better served if you run this in a PG rating instead. But for me, they really didn't hit the mark, and I felt they were just very out of place, and I'd rather focus on Rassus the cat than these silly buggers. There is an interesting backstory for why these rats and bat things are here, and this disgusting detail is going to have no impact because they'll never learn this part of the story, so it's best to cut them off like a vestigial limb that they are. Lastly, on the ground floor, there is the kitchen, which has a few typical scares that you would expect to find here, along with another chance to grab some rusty weapons which can be used to deal with the witch. There is some cool ideas with the phone having static and the witch's voice mocking them should they try to phone someone for help after being trapped here, but for now that is probably not going to happen until the end of the third act, and this is much more of just a way to get to the basement for now. Roger should be present for these opening scenes, and there's some beautiful description for him to be interacting should you be struggling to include him. He should be mocking in a playfully cruel way, pushing the children around and lying about where he's putting the secrets, and ultimately just being a bit of a dick. But these directions are very much appreciated and can be utilised should you get stuck. While they're busy exploring this ground floor, whatever they fancy doing, have him put a chain and padlock on the front door to lock them in. He is meant to have a master key to the house given to him, I'm guessing, by Evelyn the witch, but this seems a little contrived and the padlock and chain make more sense as it has more tension to it They can hear the chain being pulled over the doorknobs and the latch being clicked into place. And should they investigate and slip out just in time to see him in the hallway, they could perhaps catch him, pocket the key. This makes them feel more malicious than just simply having the door key, and the back door on default should be open as well. I nailed that shut much like the windows. Both of these things act as barriers, but they can be overcome with some little effort, unlike the witch's seal house spell, which just feels like ash in your mouth when you find out you can't escape. Leading from the kitchen, there is an open door which leads down a set of stairs to the basement. The players might be reluctant to go down here, but luring them down with secrets and chasing Rattus as he attacks and flees is a good motivation to have at least a few attempts to poke their heads down into the darkness. Here, it is littered with items that the kids can run into that are ramping up the horror just a little bit too fast should they come down here early. A book on demonology and other spell books just lie around, and there's a D&D style guardian rat thing protecting these things, acting as a librarian. Evelyn's books, however, are full on display, as are eyeballs and jars and so forth. This does look like Granny turned serial killer's lair, covered in filth and fetid, rotting flesh in places, bones left in furnaces. There's a lot to make you consider running from this house with terror. This sort of pops the cherry a little bit too soon for the tension and ruins that escalation, almost bringing the game instantly to the kids fleeing and finding that they're locked in this house with this damn spell, forcing them to engage rather than slowly boiling the frog like you really should be with the dread and horror of this place. It's a great scenario, and this just kills it with taking it too far too quickly. So what I did instead was seal the workshop away behind a sturdy door that's bolted from the other side, allowing them to look through the keyhole and spot some of the eyeballs in the jar and a few other creepy things that are small on the scale but yet quite uncanny and fearful. They just catch glimpses of these things, they're not quite sure with a few notice rolls. This creates some nice mystery and curiosity of what is behind this door and keeping some of the larger spooks in the shadows for now. But saying that, there should be a creative way to get down and behind this door into Evelyn's lair, and for that purpose I added a laundry chute in the second floor. This way the kids can feel clever by finding this and climbing down inside, being isolated in this freak show as they sort of find themselves trapped amongst Evelyn's of lair. It just makes it all the sweeter having them either take this route or be knocked down here by Roger, or perhaps even mesmerized and compelled to by the cat or Evelyn herself. A nice little trap for you. With this door in place, what they can find down here on a cursory look is the furnace with a few charred bones and the all-important coal chute, a potential escape route should Roger not let them out, and it's good foreshadowing and building up a picture of hope again in their mind. There is a way out, and it becomes a little bit more serious. If you are going to add the secrets and the pledge box as the hook to this scenario, I would definitely try and put one of the secrets down here. A quiet, dark corner of the house is great for creating drama as someone reads by torchlight someone else's secret and creates that internal friction in the group, creating trust issues and really making them doubt each other as well as the house and their purpose for being here at all. Heading upstairs, the kids are confronted with mostly abandoned bedrooms and only a few finds will be found between them. This is more of a place for the cat Rattus and Evelyn the witch to torment the children and force them into dangerous situations, using their spells like Mesmerize, Evil Eye and Mind Fog. They can set up the children to be put into dangerous situations like walking out onto the weakened floor, or indeed luring them to that laundry chute and pushing them down inside. The cat can even throw his voice and make him sound like an injured or hurt child, literally creating a cat and mouse game between the players and itself. Use the mirror as well up here and the spells the witch can cast through them, ramping up the terror of the children and really confusing matters. Even have Evelyn reach out and touch and snatch at hair, lingering smells and even voices in the air. Use cloud memory to full effect to sow confusion among the group. But the ultimate goal here is to net Evelyn a dinner. The one big find that can be found upstairs is in one of the closets. Poor old Danny the hobo has hanged himself, brought on by the trauma the house has inflicted on him. His right hand has been removed, and this is to make what is called the Hand of Glory, a throwback to older editions of Call of Cthulhu, and the children on a spooky stuff roll discover this is what has sealed the house. This is my major problem with the scenario, as this is a contrivance to keep the players in place and force them to engage in the basement with the witch by finding this hand. It is the only way to get out, basically, and it has the railroad effect of forcing the players into the story funnel and never letting them do anything interesting or creative. Anytime a media proclaims, as you know, there is that horrible sense of ash in the mouth as they are feeding you something that they couldn't tell creatively, and this is what's happening here. Not only that, if they actually fail this spooky stuff roll, they'll never understand this information anyway and find out the Hand of Glory exists. There is no way a child should know about this stuff, even if they are up on their occult. The whole point of this spooky stuff roll was to dumb it down to kids level. They should know nothing about the upper echelons of cultism. So get rid of all this stuff and never use the Seal House spell ever. It is bad, and it will leave your players with that horrible sense that you're against them rather than encouraging them to be creative. If there's one thing that will ever sour a gaming session, it is sealing them artificially into a situation. There are better and less railroady methods of achieving the same thing and keeping them to a set schedule without actually forcing them to do it, but encouraging them instead. Most of this is done with the witch and cat spells. If used cleverly, all you need to do is lure one child down to the basement and snatch them away, and the rest will follow. In place of the dead hobo, I hung up skin suits of other missing children from the area that the kids might know and recognise. The faces of these lost children found on milk cartons neatly arranged in a row in the fridge that found in the kitchen downstairs. Little trinkets and trophies from the witch who are gleefully collecting these things. The suits are hanging here just waiting for bugs to fill and animate them, and this is exactly what's going to happen to Roger should he not already be a skin servitor in your game. I would have him go missing here if he was still a real boy. They'll hear knocks and bumps from downstairs or other rooms, and then silence as Roger is taken down and then eaten from the inside out, cleansed, ready for reanimation. And there he'll basically rise from the ground, filled with bugs, and approach the group, trying to act normal, but obviously he's just a little bit creepy instead. With all the spooky goings on, the kids will definitely start to think twice about staying in this house and want to leave. Trying to escape the cat, the witch, and Roger, they are more than likely to try to head up to the attic after probably dispatching Roger at the very least and scaring off the cat perhaps. This will offer the players a little bit of a respite and is a good time for another secret to be revealed and spike that internal drama yet again. Up in the rafters, they're going to find a throng of roosting bats huddled away from the storm outside, the floor slick with guano. They can hunt around here, and I would offer a kid's toy chest filled with potential weapons for them to kit out Goonie styles if they find it, for a nice little bonus as well for venturing up this far. Among the boxes they can find the desperate journal of Mr. Briggs. He was the husband of the last family that lived here. He lost his daughter, who was taken by Evelyn, and he has been scrapbooking and outlining the stories and events that have led back into the 1800s with Evelyn snatching away children. This will clue the group in what's really going on and really start to fill in them blanks. Up here, I used the bats roosting in the rafters as a sort of alarm bell, having the children sneak around, trying not to disturb them, or they would become a swarm of screeching animals and disturb the vulture-sized bat which resides in the copula. This would come down the stairs and investigate who was intruding into its lair. The bat itself is actually not too hard to deal with in the initial scenario, and I changed it somewhat to make it beefier, turning it into a stitched abomination of roadkill and filled again with bugs, keeping to the theme of the house. This thing should be massive and slow as it crawls around the attic space. Should they actually get outside, it will, however, swoop down and try and grab them off their bikes and lift them into the air and wheel round and land back in the copula and drag them back inside, making for a dramatic end chase should they get that far. Should they try and find a way down from the attic to the garden, have the roof drenched and soaked and slick, they would struggle to keep their feet in the howling winds as they attempt to make for the roof and down a drain pipe. But that is not to say they should be punished too badly, and it should actually be possible for them to do this, with a gym class roll taking them to the actual yard below. Otherwise, to get out, the group is going to have to remember about the coal chute in the cellar, or try to force open one of the windows or break out one of the doors, which is a pretty reasonable idea, and again should be obtainable with the right tools and mentality. As they try to make their escape, I would have the witch command all the insects and vermin in the area to gather in tides and start to swarm in the herd through the house, bubbling up from behind rotten wallpaper and up through the cracks in the floor, trying to make sure they head down into the basement where she is waiting for them. These carpets of interest, I would ask for a con roll from the kids should they start wading into them and cause some damage should they fail that, as they have to endure the bites as they crawl up into their clothes and through their hair and attack their legs, eventually collapsing them and gutting them like they would with Roger, making another skin suit. This could be fun for the players as they rise from the dead and turn on their fellow group, hunting them down and taking them to task for the secrets they might have told. But if they manage to get outside, fair play to them and just head on out towards the garden for a good old chase. Should some of the children end up near the kitchen at this point, I would have the smell of delicious pies emanating into the corridor, and as they look in, they'll see their own granny sitting baking their favourite pies. This will encourage them to come in and sit down perhaps and engage with their gran, but this is the witch in disguise, trying to lure them and mesmerize them and use all of her magic to full effect so she can devour them as they sit and eat themselves. Encountering the witch at her fullest is a difficult thing indeed. She is a beast, her corpulent form filling any room with her presence, and she is not one that will be escaped from should she manage to catch someone in her pudgy little claws. They are best to run here, but they can kill her with iron, as most fairy tales will tell you. Running outside into the lashing storm, however, will greet them with a flooded pond and darkness as the howling gales batter against them. I would ask for some dex rolls to stay on their feet as they run the obstacle course of the garden and try to dodge the bat abomination, which should be dive bombing them and trying to carry them back to the house. However, their bike should always be in sight through the gate, and that is their hope. Should someone get snatched up by the abomination and taken back inside, the others will have to agonize over whether they need to go back and get them or leave them to their fate, heading home and counting themselves lucky. Overall, we had a blast with this scenario, and there was a lot of things that can be done with it, and I can see different playthroughs going in different directions. However, it does have problems with railroading them into the basements with the Hand of Glory, and there being just too many enemies for any one to really get showcased. Let it breathe, take some out, and only introduce them should people like Roger the cat fall in combat or end up having to be taken out. This is one hell of a good time if you make them fixies, and it will sing for you. Should you be at a loss at what to do at Halloween night, you cannot go wrong with the Dare. It is a fun throwback to the 80s and it is all the rage right now. And with that, I'll see you again next time, and thanks for listening.
His head topples to the floor, expressionless. You fall to your knees and catch your breath. You're finally safe.